Hi, and welcome to another episode of My YA Book Nook, a podcast dedicated to connecting with YA readers and fulfilling its mission, growing YA book love. Thanks for listening today. On today's episode, I'm going to be doing a book talk, but before we get started, here's the question of the episode. What is your bookish New Year's resolution for 2025? Let me know in the comments. For me, I want to step out of my reading comfort zone, which is romance, realistic fiction, really light, simple reads. Lately, I've been reading more murder mysteries and thrillers, and surprisingly, I've really been enjoying them, so I'm glad that I'm introducing myself to different genres. Today, I'll be doing a book talk on A Pho Love Story by Lone Lee. This book definitely is in my comfort zone, but I really enjoy reading it, and it was the first book that I finished in 2025, so I really wanted to share it. Let's start off with the summary. If Bao Nguyen had to describe himself, he'd say he's like a rock. Steady and strong, but not very interesting. He's an average student with an unremarkable social status, and works at his parents' pho restaurant, as maybe his parents' fifth favorite employee. Not ideal. If Lin Mai had to describe herself, she'd say she was a firecracker, stable while unlit, but full of potential and fire. She loves art and wants to pursue it as a career. However, her parents believe art's just a hobby for her and rely on her in ways that they won't admit. She works practically full-time at her family's pho restaurant. For years, the Mais and the Nguyen's have been rivals, owning neighboring pho restaurants. Both Bao and Lin, who've avoided each other for most of their lives, suspect that the feud stems from feelings much deeper than friendly competition. Then, a chance encounter brings Lin and Bao in the same vicinity, and sparks fly, leading them to wonder what took them so long to connect. But then, of course, they immediately remember. Can Lin and Bao find love in the midst of feuding families and complicated histories? When I first started reading this book, I thought it would be a enemies to lovers book trope based on the summary and the cover of the book, but I think it's actually a little more fun than that. It is a modern Romeo and Juliet retelling because their families are rivals, not them specifically. They only met once when they were toddlers at a temple before getting pulled away from each other. They're like background characters in each other's stories. They're so evident, but they've never truly spoken before. They go to the same school, live right next to each other, but only meet as upperclassmen in high school. How could their families' feuds hinder them from meeting for so long? The academic and family turmoil is very real. Lin loves art and she really wants to make that her career. However, she's forced to miss many events because her parents need more help at the restaurant. After she aced a single engineering-related test, her parents are set on Lin studying engineering. She can't seem to explain to her parents, who think art is just a hobby, that she wants to pursue it in the future. Bao, on the other hand, has no idea what he wants to do at the beginning of the book. He's really confused and happens to take newspaper as a class at school. He and Lin get to know each other when they are sent on an assignment to find the best restaurants in town for dates, which is very coincidental. Lin's the artist and Bao's the writer, the perfect pair. This assignment leads to many more important events in the book. And of course, both characters want to make their parents proud because of how hard they worked so their children could have a better life. In terms of romance, it definitely starts off very early in the book. I expected it to take a little longer, but through the double POV, we learn that both characters start to have feelings for each other very soon. Eventually, they do get together, of course, but at some point in the book, you're just kind of waiting for it to happen. So I feel like it was a little slow, but it's worth it, the wait. I loved all the characters in this book. They're all really likable, and most importantly, they're memorable. They all have different personalities, and it just adds a different layer of engagement to the book. Also, I loved all the talk about Vietnamese food, especially pho. In one of the chapters, Bao talks about a dish that makes you want to run out and get it right away. Loan Lee did a very good job of describing these foods, and it made me just want to go and eat it right away. Their families' pho restaurants are across the street from each other, so naturally the businesses and families are rivals. But when things escalate, from rumors to overconfidence on how bad the other restaurant is, Bao and Lin start to get suspicious that the rivalries are about more than just the restaurant. The family history goes back in ways you would never expect. It's not a silly rivalry. There's actually serious issues and emotion behind the feud. Sometimes in enemies to lovers books, the feud could be kind of unrealistic, but this is very different. They work together to learn more about what their parents are hiding about their past, what they aren't telling Bao and Lin about the rivalry. There are also a lot of other important topics in the book, such as racism. Bao and Lin live in Little Saigon, but racism is still at large and very evident, happening in their own restaurants. Bao uses his talents to fight racism, and in a way, it brings the Mais and the Nguyen's together. It gave me a new perspective on racism and how serious it really is, and I think she incorporated it really well into the book. All these topics, secret family histories, romance, coming of age, racism, the experience of an immigrant, really made the book worth reading. It's definitely not a waste of time and touches on some really important topics while still being fun. Also, how did I just learn that there's a second part to this book? It's called Solving for the Unknown, featuring Viet and Evie. Viet is Bao's best friend, and Evie is Lin's sister. It comes out this year in March, so I'll definitely be on the lookout for this book, and I'm super excited to read it. If you are looking for a light rom-com read, but want to spend time reading a book that has a good meaning, A Pho Love Story is perfect. I hope you enjoyed this episode of My YA Book Nook. Thank you so much for being here. If you agree with my mission that growing book love is important, be sure to follow me on Instagram at My YA Book Nook and tell others about this podcast so we can fulfill our mission together. I'll see you in 2 weeks.